This is the Peter Greenwood Show at the Glasgow Film Festival 2025. This is our 5th year. We're having a great time. Question mark. And I'm sitting opposite two gentlemen who have made a film who is showing at this year's film festival. Could you tell me your names and what you do, please?
My name is Jason Buxton. I'm the writer-director of the movie Sharp Corner.
And I'm Paul Barkin, producer of Sharp Corner.
How are you guys today? You well?
Very well.
Pretty good.
Happy to be here.
Yes. So let's talk about Sharp Corner. We'll try our best not to spoil it, but it's an interesting film. Where did it come from? Where did the idea start?
Well, it started from a short story by a writer from Newfoundland. And I was immediately drawn to the story because it had such a great premise that works well as a high concept for a movie. And I thought it was a great template to study obsession. And that's where I took the story when I started to adapt it.
And what was the process of adapting it like to the screen? What did you have to add? What did you have to take away? Was there anything you really wanted to add but you couldn't?
Well, I had to turn it into a 3-act structure. The short story just sort of deals with the mindset of the man who becomes really focused on these car accidents that occur in front of his house every couple of months. But I needed to go further with that and develop an arc for the character. Essentially, his obsession goes further than it does in the short story.
So how did you get involved as producer, and what was that like coming onto the project?
Well, I had known about Jason as a filmmaker from his first film, Blackbird, which was hugely successful, won a lot of awards, and Jason lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I live in Toronto, so we hadn't actually crossed paths, strangely. A friend suggested they had just read his draft of Sharp Corner and thought it would be something that I would like. So I read it and met with Jason in Toronto one time at TIFF. And it was like quite a interesting script, and hearing what Jason's thoughts on how to sort of execute it and what it meant to him started to make me go, this is something really special. And then we developed it at the sort of later stage together, bringing out the themes and sort of shaping it into production. And that was in 2018. And then we were trying to make it in 2020, but of course the pandemic, and then we picked it back up in 22 and made it in 23.
I've heard a lot of people say that the pandemic was a bit of a not exactly blessing, but it gave them more time to work on things and develop further ideas. Was that true for Sharp Corner? Did you develop anything that maybe you didn't have time to, and you had time all of a sudden?
Yeah, not really in our case. We were ready to go. So the pandemic was, frustrating.
I will say the pandemic did create a scenario where I think the way people look at things and approach things changed the perspective on how one would, look at this film. I think it may have, the things that went on during the pandemic sort of made this film, people understand it maybe a bit differently.
Yeah, to add to that, I think it's a character who has lost his purpose in life. And so I think a lot of people being locked up during the pandemic, not being able to find the purpose they had in their lives before the pandemic, I think this movie kind of speaks to that a little bit.
So what was the casting process like? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we started pretty early to try to get a sense as to who would be the character of Josh. You start with a very wide range and lots of ideas and dreams, and people pitch you lots of ways. But it took us a while. Ben Foster was obviously as Josh in the film, and we really had him on top of our wish list. But I think when we started to cast on the dates, he wasn't available originally. And then we went through many names to try to find someone, and then we had to stop because of the actor strike in the U.S. Even though we're shooting in Canada, it affected us. So we were able to circle back and went to able to go back to Ben, and he's in the movie.
And what was it like working with Ben? Was he it was in the nicest way possible. How did it take him to get the material and understand the script, and what did he bring to the material?
Well, it's interesting because when you think about casting an actor and you look at the body of work, you try to figure out, is this something that's going to appeal to that actor? And from my perspective, there was nothing specifically in Ben's filmography to suggest that this was going to be a movie that would speak to him. As it turns out, this character spoke to him in many ways, and he was very prepared. He showed up very locked into this character in this film and the script, and was very dedicated. It was a pleasure.
When you were filming, what was the most difficult part of the whole process, and how did you overcome some of those challenges? I know that's a very broad question, but...
Yeah,
I think the biggest thing was having to push the schedule was a big thing, although it was to our advantage as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, and maybe your question is specifically inside of production, inside of filming itself. From my perspective, the big set pieces were, the most complicated. Some of those recreations of car accidents were quite intense, and we had to schedule 3 days for a couple of them. So that's tough as a director, and a lot of different setups. But yeah, that would probably be it for me. Just, I mean, filmmaking is tough and brutal, and you don't sleep much, but you just have to power on.
How many days was the shooting schedule?
We were about 30.
That's a pretty intense shooting schedule.
Yeah, and we were fortunate. Most independent films, shoot for less, especially in Canada. So we were very fortunate to get 6 weeks.
When it came to editing the film and putting it all together, was there much you had to cut out, or is there a trove of deleted scenes somewhere, or is it pretty much what was shot made it into the film?
Not a trove, but a handful. And we made a decision midway through post-production to end the film where we end the film. I won't mention it to spoil. Don't want to spoil the ending of the film, but it felt like the right point in which to leave the audience, and it seems to work. People that we've spoken to who have seen the movie talk about that ending, and I think it engages the audience to project their own ideas onto it.
Yeah, like they again, trying not to spoil it. It makes you, many words, I'm sorry, but it really does kind of make you think about what does happen next, and it does leave that impression with you. Like, you do think about it after you finish watching it, which must be a good thing to tell a director and a filmmaker, that their work stayed with you.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that helps us in terms of word of mouth. People talk about the movie, and they debate it. They debate where this character is going to go from here. And it's great. Yeah, the conversation continues after the movie.
What is next for you guys? Can you tell us about upcoming projects? And can I be in it? Because I'd like to come to Canada, please.
Do you want to go first?
You go first.
I'm just looking. I'm reading a lot of different scripts, and I have one project that's a limited series that deals with a serial killer nurse.
Oh, okay.
So similar but different, and just thinking about the next thing. Really, I mean, we're still pushing this one out there, so it's hard to.
Still in its infancy of being released.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about yourself?
Oh, I have a number of projects that are gearing up for various stages. One is an MMA fight movie.
Oh, I could do that.
Yeah, it's a female-centric MMA fight movie, but there's always a place. And an indigenous story about a riot at a residential school that the kids took over the residential school, which is based on a true story in the 1960s. And lots of things are floating around as well.
It's very much to be continued.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today. It was great to talk to you. Good luck with the film, and enjoy your time in Scotland.
Thank you.